check. Salute, Jada Cook. What's up, Roy? Mic check 1, 2, 3. Barry B in the house. Cowboys 60. Salute. Yes. Yes, want that 1,100. Hey, God Imperial Almighty. Salute. CJ, what's up? Shout out to you too as well. We'll get this thing rolling at 7:30 Central Standard Time. We're gonna get the thing going. Virginia's finest. What's up, Lord? What it do, Belly? Fire Jason Garrett. Shout out to you too as well. Came to make adjustments. Yeah, you're right. Spicy Curry in the house. Salute. Shout out to Jacob as well. No doubt, Joshua. Salute to you and your fam. No need, no words in changing your name up. I feel your flow, fam. Shout out to everybody in the house. Salute to you and the fam. As we begin to get this thing going. There you go, right here. There you go. All right. Appreciate it, guys. Let me turn my volumes down. Thank everybody for tuning in. You guys know how it goes with this. Jason Garrett talk. Is he the coach? Is he not the coach? Is this the Scott Linehan? Is it Rob Marinelli's? Who is it? Whose fault is it? We don't know. We never know. We see influx of Eagles fans, but Jay saying die Eagles die. Salute to that. But not to throw any casting aspersions towards the Eagles. We understand what they are. They are. The moons are aligned, the stars and the planet, everything seems to be going in their flavor, so in the right direction. So salute to those Eagles fans out there. I hope they can one day get them one, you know. So right now, everybody at jobs and works are saying that the Eagles have already won the Super Bowl, right? But neither here nor there. You know, Super Bowl is played in February. That's why it's not played in December, nor is it played in November or what have you. So those are things that we got to understand there too as well. But as we look at the aspect of what Jason Garrett brings to the team, to me personally, it's just one of those things. I lamented it earlier before that I want to have Jason Garrett out of here because it's still the same thing, you know. So I mean, we gonna give excuses after excuses, and then we never move on from there. And then we talk about this game with the philosophy of the coaching staff, the identity. Everybody, mama, uncle, cousin, sister, step brother, knows that you need to have some type of continuity for one, and some type of identity. Now, yes, we have a piece of it. Yes, we have continuity with Jason Garrett. He's been here for what, 7 to 8 years, going on 8 years, something like that, right? So it's one of those things that we got to figure out a way, if come hell and high water, if he's going to be the guy that's behind the throne, will he answer to like the mercy seat, the hot seat? And it's time for us to press that button, because if they don't win out, if the Cowboys don't win out, then we have no chance of going to this playoff. And even if we go to the playoff, what are we going to do? You know, as far as adjustments, we all know that those weeks in the, you know, even if we go, and I know it's kind of like abstract or far from here, even if we go to the Super Bowl, right? Those 2 weeks is going to be nightmarish, because we just know that the adjustment period, you know, coming off of buys, coming off of breaks, it just seems like this team just looks stale and lethargic coming out of the shot, you know, or coming out of the guns ablazing. We don't do those things. So it's just one of those things, the mentality. Everybody know from east to west, west to south, and south to north, and north to whatever you're at on the globe, is that you become eventually who your coach is. The identity of that, you becomes the identity of your coach, and that's just the bottom line. So collectively, this team has became the identity of the coach, and somehow, you know, somebody's gonna argue and lament the fact that we wasn't saying this last year, but there were still a few fans out there who watched every game who was really saying, like, look, Jason Garrett is not the coach, man. We got all the firepower and he's just not bringing it to him. But we do know that players play, coaches coach, but there's still a thin line, you know.
Yo.
Salute. What's going on, man?
Hey, man, nothing much.
Nothing going but the rent, right? As they say out here, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm already into the flow of the show.
I hear that.
Yeah, everybody, salute to Derek. He's in the house too as well. We're gonna talk about the Cowboys short bringings, and we can dib and dab on coaching too as well, and we can talk a little bit about future game, the Dallas Cowboys versus the Redskins. We have a full entree for you guys today. We're just gonna keep it to about 34 minutes to 35 minutes.
Sounds like a plan.
Yes, indeed. So you guys know the Dallas Prospect. Please go out to the website and follow and hit the like button on Facebook too as well, where you can guys get a heavy dose of Cowboys content, and not just Cowboys. You get Dallas Mavericks, the local Stars too as well, and I think you're doing Rangers too as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. All the major local teams, Rangers, Cowboys, Stars. We also cover Big 12 football. Got the Big 12 championship coming up this Saturday with OU and Fort Worth's own TCU. So yeah, we try and hit all the local major sports.
There you go. That's what I like to hear right there. So you guys can get a heavy dose of a wealth of information, a wealth. Derek brings in a wealth of knowledge of those things too as well. So Derek, how do you feel about this last game, this previous game? Matter of fact, the last two games collectively.
Can we just lump in that Atlanta game as well? Just make it a smooth 3-game feel?
Yeah, the hat trick, right?
Yeah, it off, man. I don't know what it is. It is a weird thing where the last couple times the Cowboys had bad seasons. I know in 2015, if you lose a quarterback, that's pretty much a death blow for most any team. There are exceptions, but for most any team, that's a death blow to the season. But it is interesting to me how if this Cowboys team, this coaching staff more specifically, if they lose one of their key players, someone in their top 5, God forbid, more than one guy, 2 guys, maybe 3 in that top 5, just everything completely falls apart. And I don't know if it's something to do with Ezekiel Elliott's impact, so much so as it's just the team is not executing. I do think Zeke is important, but I don't think that Zeke makes you 3-0 or maybe even 2-1 in these last 3 games. I feel like there's something more kind of going on here, and I put a lot of that at the coaching staff in terms of adjustments, in terms of game planning. And I just think we have too vanilla of an offense. I think our strategy, it works great when you have guys who are at such a level that it doesn't matter if you know what they're going to run. You can't stop them. But in situations like we've seen the last 3 weeks, we're not bringing anything new or unique to the table, really. And I think that's making us too one-dimensional. When you got Dez, who runs only 1 of 3 routes, Cole Beasley, who runs only 1 of 2 routes, you got maybe 5 run plays on your book in general in terms of your game plan. I think it just makes you too one-dimensional. You don't leave your cornerbacks, who the defense, guessing or anything like that. And then when you're getting throttled or when you're just not executing, you don't make changes at halftime, and as a result, your defense wears down, and what was a close game suddenly turns into a butt whooping. It's happened the last 3 weeks. Dallas has been outscored something like 72-6 in the last 3 second halves. So everything's fallen off at this point, and now you have questions about whether this team is quitting on the coaching staff. And you've had that said by now 2 opponents. So there's something to look at there.
Yeah, there's something to dig deep into as well. Players speak their mind too as well. And I think that it's been loose. They haven't been loose-lipped lately, and that's the reason because of the organization, how they structured in a way. I was talking about earlier, the team takes on the identity of the coach, and if you look at everything collectively, you're looking at the fact that sometimes I know people will say players play and the coach is coach, right? But at the same token of time, if you put Shaq, and I'm going to switch over to basketball, if you put Shaq as a point guard, he wouldn't flourish as well. He's a good basketball player, but he's playing out of position. You put this offensive line, and they're supposed to be aggressive, have that dog mentality. And if you don't put them in the right places, regardless of whether or not you're missing your left tackle, or regardless of whether or not you're missing a tight end or a wide receiver or running back, if you're not coaching and scheming these players up to par, then you're going to get these type of performance. And then also too as well, if you look at every team across any sport, you win during the off season. You cannot play it safe to the vest or play it too close. And I know everybody is mentioning the kid that we just signed, Dante Jones or what have you. He's nothing more than, after looking at tape, he's nothing more than the Jay Elliott's of the world, the DeMontre Moores of the world. I don't even know that this kid is going to even get a chance to even play out there on the field. So we get all highly and we get all googly eyes, and that's Jerry Jones telling us the moon is made of cheese again. You cannot make it with a guy who's just been bounced to team. He is not the answer, guys. I just hate to bust the bubble.
Yeah, more than likely he's not going to be any kind of savior for this season. That's not to say that we haven't found quality before when kind of, rummaging through the
trash,
unwanted, the trash, so to speak, the unwanted players from other teams. We had George Selvey, who we found, and who for about 2 years or so we made into a pretty solid contributor to the defensive line. Yeah, so that's you can find them out.
Yeah, you can find them, but my thing is too as well, is all I mentioned earlier, continuity. That's all through off season. That's all through training, getting to know the people where you're going to be putting in the right spot. Right now,
that's a point.
Yeah. His skill set is the derive of a 3-4 defense, and it's kind of like me putting Shaq in as a point guard. Shaq is a dominant player. He can play well, but of course I'm talking about past Shaq. But if you put him at point guard or not small forward, but a shooting guard, you're not going to get the same results. Remember, everybody have reasons, but results is what matter. And if you wanted to get a dominant defensive player, your time to make that move was during the offseason. You could have got Calais Campbell. You could have reached out a little bit, and I do know that we worry about a little bit of with the salary caps and things like that. And if you know for sure, without a shot of a doubt, that this is the team that you want to take to the Super Bowl, then you will make moves for getting and putting on a veteran cornerback. Because right now we need depth and veterans out there as far as the defensive back too as well.
Yeah, I mean, we get the news today that the Cowboys are benching Anthony Brown at cornerback. That's obviously concerning when you're a team that's lost 3 straight, you're 5-6, and you have a young, unproven secondary. In the secondary, it hasn't been that great. Jordan Lewis has shown some flashes for us, but other than that, I don't know what we really have in terms of someone who can come in. And if they think that they're going to be able to somehow rally to save the season, I don't know that this is a move that really helps you with that.
Right. And
Cheeto in his place.
Right. And you know for sure everybody, this is just like, if we talking about giving up on a season, This is just, well, probably like moonlighting into that, because now you got a guy that's going to be even more less experienced. Although he can be explosive, although he can fly in ways to the ball, but you still got to understand that there's still going to be growing pains involved in that. There's going to be misreads and missed assignments. So it's just one of those things where that rally cry of just making something shake, just not going to happen. I hate to say it, as a true Cowboys bleed blue and silver, it's just one of those things that we have to look back and just say, hey, you know, the coaching staff dropped the ball. If it was any time for these things to shake, Jimmy Johnson would have been made those type of moves. When he first got burned, he would say, hey, you know, or during the offseason, he would have been made and set him down and said, hey, you get blown, you miss assignments like this again, you hitting the bench, you know. So
yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think part of the team's issue in terms of you kept mentioning off-season adjustments. I think that they really tried to change as little as possible. They address the defense. I'm talking about with regard to offensive changes or anything like that. Like the entire receiving core. You know, Dez finished strong last year, but on the whole, it wasn't a great year out of our receiving core last year. And so to bring back basically from that, leave that largely unchanged, I think that's a little bit too set in your ways. Now, that's easy to say, you know, hindsight's 2020, but I do think that there's kind of a trend you see with Dallas where season where they think they're right there. Look at 2007, another team that went 13-3. And then we hear all the hype next year about how it's going to be Super Bowl, yada, yada, yada. And we bring the almost exact same team back, and then the wheels kind of fall off because you build the same continuity or you have a couple injuries. But it's really just, I think you have to keep some level of a new talent infusion if you're going to replicate the success. You don't just bring back the same blueprint with like one slightly different line on it. In this case, Switzer, I guess, instead of Lucky Whitehead.
Yeah, so yeah, you speak strong points on that. You know, everybody's better than their best. If they kind of foolish, if they don't understand and think that everybody went home all throughout the whole season and said, hey, how can we stop this defense? How can we stop this offense? They sucker punched us in the mouth. How can we read and scheme for Dak Prescott when he roll out? We see that he loves to roll out to his right. You know, can we blitz him on this play? Can we bring an extra man down into the box? Can we just man up Dez, get into his head and his mental capacity, and just double bracket now Cole Beasley? You know, things like that. That's game planning. That's coaches, what they do. And especially as I'm looking at the trend on the younger coaches, when we play against them, they scheme us up real good.
Yeah, I mean, teams are figuring out what Dak likes to do and everything. You saw it in that Chargers game, early drive. They sat on his bootleg rollout, and that ends up being, you know, a pretty significant blown up play there. I think that at this point, out on the Dallas offense, and that's kind of goes back to what I was saying before. You have to keep infusing new elements to it, whether it's, you know, running some kind of counter you did before, or changing things up where maybe you move Dez a little bit more to the once in a while. Somehow you have to shake it up, change it up, where you keep the other team guessing. And I feel like we're trying to run an offense as it's still like the '93 Cowboys. That philosophy really works. I realize we ran that last year. It had, you know, a chance. If you have the right personnel, it can still work. But I feel like at this point, with everything we're seeing, you have to understand, change it up a little bit. You have to at least have something in your back pocket, you know, as far as how to get this team moving, how to create first downs and all of that. And I feel like this coaching staff is being more stubborn than usual.
Yeah, they have the stubborn the tendency. Just like for example, a big example last year, they kept this Jackson kid on the roster for a long period of time, the running back that was drafted along with Zeke. I think it was the 4th or 5th round, something like that. or 5th or 6th round, I think, or something like that. Jackson, you remember the kid that the Cleveland Browns picked up or what have you? I know he's injured now.
Yeah, picked up from us.
Yeah, so I do know he's injured and all this, but who knows if he'd have stayed on the team running behind this offensive line, maybe he could have been a great spellback. But they kept him instead of cutting, I guess, Morris or McFadden or something like that. Now if you fast forward, if you fast forward to this year, right? Same scenario. You know, you coddle McFadden knowing that you don't have a solution or a game plan for him, and then you cut him. You know, that's sort of going on 6-7 games into the season. You know, so it's just one of those or more. You know, it's just one of those same things. Why would you keep a roster spot and not develop somebody else behind him, like an understudy after Zeke? If you think Morris and Rod Smith was the answer this offseason, then the shoe falls on the hot seat should be at Jason Garrett or somebody in that front office for not just having a better outlook or a better plan of action, because we had chances and opportunity to get somebody out there who can run proven commodities.
Yeah, definitely. I think McFadden only got like 2 or 3 carries even on the season. I mean, he wasn't even utilized when he was inactive, even games without Zeke. Very strange thing. I get that it was a mutual decision to waive him.
Yes, I don't know if I'm losing you a little bit, but yeah, it could have been, like I said, a mutual decision. But it's just one of those things where it's time wasted. My teacher used to say this when I was in grade school: time wasted is time lost, meaning that you will never get that time back. And the philosophy of the coaching in the front office. Do I believe for sure that Will McClay can find hidden gems? Yes. But do I believe that we have time? No, we don't have time for us to wait and fall back and have somebody to be developed. You know, to me, I don't think we have time. I must have lost you all together. But it's just one of those things, guys. So let me answer some of the questions in the chat box. This is Michael Ferrero. Jerry losing it in the draft. I think we draft pretty decent, but the people that we draft, I think that the staff just sometimes doesn't feel like they ready at times. You know, like I would like to see more Switzer. I don't know if he is getting separation, but you only see him out there for selective plays like the reverse sweep or the sweep run. I would like to see him flank out into the flats or run some of those combination route tree, because I saw all through his college tape that he have a diverse route tree in his pedigree. So I would like to see more of him out there on the field. Now, is it Dak not getting the ball out to him? I don't know. You know, I'm not out here in practice watching the games, but it's just one of those things, one of those factors where I would like for this team to get a little bit more creative. At the end of the day, I talked recently last week about Rico. I know everybody was saying, well, that's preseason where he was doing all those miraculous catches and he was being open and stuff like that. But the kid is 6'8", guys. 6'8" just don't fall out of the sky. You just can't go into you just can't wake up the next day and say, well, hell, I want to be 6'8". I'm gonna grow to 6'8". That's something that God gives you, and that's something that's his ability to catch and create separation should be by far a way where the coaching staff can figure out something to get him out there in the red zone. or even if you're not able to get him out in the red zone, I mean, fade patterns are available. There are so many other things that's out there that we can do to get this kid out there to have the ball. But this coaching staff still reluctantly just don't have those mixes of trying to go out and just create some type of new wrinkle, you know. But this is from Verl. I knew Gary lied about going to Princeton. He iced our kicker. Man, that's funny. Yeah, he did ice the kicker before. That's my guy from Roy. No speed or in quickness out there on wideouts. I mean, the wideouts can only run what's called, and that's a good question there, Roy. I think Bryce Butler has the speed. He can create separation, But his routes, I don't think that they're calling the routes for him to run. But I have to look back at a few tapes, and I did, he does have the separation, the speed to get out to the edges. And you got to think about this too as well. Bryce Butler's not going to go against the number one corner on anybody's team. He's going to be going against the third or the nickel or the slot corner. So to me, I don't know why they can't create some type of route combination for him. Or even, I mentioned before, even put him on a reverse sweep. The kid runs a sub 4.40, so they need to figure out a way. This is falls on the coaching staff and their philosophy. And if they can't get creative, then that's why I hear a lot of people all through my Twitter mention it. Then we need a younger coach. We need a younger coach, somebody who can identify with Dak Prescott. This is done. This is from King Quad. If he's not, he's knocking on the door basically. And I love Daz. He's one of those guys that hell, everybody in his chat box at least once in their life threw up their X. And it just seemed like the sky is falling on him. I don't know if it's a series of injuries. I don't know if the continuity, the poise, and the way Dak throw the ball to him, maybe they're going to take time to gel. Most people say it take 3 years, unless you Tom Brady or somebody. But who has another year to wait for it, Let me see. Josh McDaniels, and that's from Cowboys Legend 27. You guys can salute to him. Josh McDaniels. The thing is, the only reservations I have from ex-Patriot coaches, and I think he's still coaching for the Patriots, is that when they go to other teams, right, they seem to fall off the map and they try to scratch their way back onto the roster some way. But to me, I like Pat. I think his name is Pat Patricia or something like that, or Matt Patricia or something like that, the defensive guy. I love defense, and I think that a defensive-minded coach, somebody who can get into the nose and the face of the opposition, that's something that this team might need. All love, fam. Yeah, he has a great mind. Let me see. King Quad, Dak needs a mental and football IQ at the line to work. I think Dak is great, and I know that everybody want to compare him to Carson Wentz. Look, I saw a documentary on Carson. The kid, believe it or not, he got photographic memory, and he's one of those guys. Yes. What's going on, man?
Hey, man. Sorry about that.
I understand, man. Technology, we all have technical difficulties. I was talking about Carson Wentz. He have a photographic memory. Yeah. And it was one of those things. I saw a quick documentary on him, and he was talking about, hey, they were saying like, hey, did you study for this test? And he's like, no, I didn't need to study. I looked over everything. It's in my mind, So he's one of those guys that the Eagles can fall upon, where not only you can't fool this guy twice. He got a photographic memory. If he's seen it before, he's gonna recall it. He got the great, as they call it, recall ability. So the Eagles looked up and got that guy.
Nice. Yeah, Wentz is definitely having a breakout year. Last year, you look at the numbers and all that, there's no doubt Dak had the better season. Now, because of how Wentz is playing this year, I would still say, for the first part of this year, I would still say it was pretty close. Obviously, the last 3 weeks, it's fallen off. Dak is better in a complementary role to the offensive line and, Zeke, or what? I will say this. I think Wentz is the better passer. I think there's no doubt there that in terms of his across the field, I think he's better. But I think Dak has a real knack for clutch plays. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to see much of that the last 3 weeks. But I think it's going to be one of those great rivalries we're looking at for the next few years, comparing Dak and Wentz in the NFC East.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those things, but it's just how it is, Wentz and Dak. If I was to, go with a quarterback, and they say, hey, this is going to be your quarterback for the next 5 years, with barring no injuries and things of that nature. If I can just have Dak with Zeke, it's just a perfect marriage. It's just sometimes that's just how things work. Sometimes you got to be, married to a football player. People fail to realize that even Peyton Manning, he had Adrian James all those years.
Yeah, definitely. That helped him early on.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so moving back to Cowboys talk, what are your outlooks or what are your prospects on this upcoming game?
So let's see. We got another Thursday game against the Washington Redskins. That kind of points back to what we were talking about as far as how injuries, just a couple key injuries, seem to derail this team. The Redskins, they're barely fielding a team, it seems like, most weeks right now. They've had, I think, 14 players over the course of the season, with all varying degrees of, crucial importance to their roster, facing either season-ending injuries or just missing significant time, like Josh Norman. So I think it's a situation where Dallas has beat them before, but I still don't feel great about their prospect of beating them again with how the team is playing right now. If we have an offense that can't put up more than 10 points, we see the shakeup we're doing in the secondary. That's a little bit concerning for me. And then you have Josh Norman coming back. That pretty much means Dez is probably looking at something along the lines of 3 catches for 37 yards. Yeah, I don't know. I really am not sure how good we should feel about Dallas's chances, or if it's looking like another week of them getting run off the field in the second half.
Yeah, statistically
favorable to Dallas.
Yeah, statistically the statistics favor the Redskins. Now, the Dallas do have their back against the wall. I think they're tired in the record. Tied in the record, I meant to say. So it's one of those things where we still have our back against the wall because we're on a 3-game slide or skid or whatever you want to call it. So if this team can figure out a way to maybe special teams pick it up or defensive takeaway can put games in its favor. I don't know whether or not the Redskins O-line is still banged up, but that helped us out the first game. But we had Zeke, so I don't know.
Yeah, they had some significant injuries there. I don't know how much of it was on their defensive line. I know their offensive line was shredded by injury. The defense, I know they're missing one of their good pass rushers, but I don't know about the other one.
But as long as I think they got a guy named Kerrigan, or how do you say it, Ryan?
I think that's I feel like that's who they were missing, but I don't know if it was a season ending or just out for that game at the time.
We need that. We need him to be out for this game. But
yeah.
I kind of like, and I don't wish injury on nobody, but they do also have a linebacker that flies out to the ball. I think his name is Mac, I believe, or Zach. I keep on forgetting his name. It's either Mac or Zach. He's on the defensive side of the ball. He flies out to the ball, so he's one of those guys that can be everywhere on the field. I think he's like top 5 or top 3 or something like that in tackles. Fast linebackers always worry me because the name of the game is Dak rolling out to the edges and Dak finding open guy because they fear the run. Now, what make Dak Prescott so dynamic, and of course I'm gonna tell everybody out here that's in the chat box saying that or everybody in the previous chat box and the previous Twitter mentions saying bench Dak and put Cooper in, that's a big no-no because that game is everything with Zeke, because people fail to realize that DBs and safeties fear Dak rolling out, fear the Dak run and all that. And when you complement and you add Zeke to the backfield, then you add that extra space. The only reason why I said we need to probably take another look at Jason Garrett is not the fact that we missing Zeke. It's the not the spontaneity. It's the adjustments that they just don't make. You know, I do know that somebody mentioned before, they hit me up on Twitter and they said, you know what, Law Nation, Jimmy Johnson was 1-17 without Emmitt Smith.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that earlier. You know, Aikman's first season, I think he was 1-15 as a starter. It wasn't until they eventually established that offensive line and, you know, drafted Emmitt Smith that you saw them kind of start to build towards being that dominant team. So it's one of those things. You have very few quarterbacks who can just make everything work without the run game, right? You might have and Aaron Rodgers, maybe at certain points of his career. You could also say Drew Brees. But beyond that, you're kind of hard pressed to find a guy who can make it work without that pressure release valve at the running back position.
Right, and I do think that you said, or somebody said, or I think my guy Joe Rod is in the chat box, that this team always thrive with a defense, with a running back, I meant to say. And this is the only time they've been great, and we can go all the way back, before Emmett, so it's just one of those things where whether or not is it something that just is just how the makeup and the chemistry is of the team. Without a dominant running back, the team is just going no further than they are right now,
Yeah, that's tough to say. I know that in relief, Alfred Morris's numbers have looked pretty good. Like the Philadelphia game, I think he had 17 carries for 91 yards. But whereas he's putting up the stats because it's not having the impact on the game, it's a situation where they're pretty much taking everything away with regard to Dez and the other receivers. And then they're just letting the Cowboys kind of churn out and things like that, knowing it's not really fueling the drive. There's no explosive threat right now, whether it's coming out of the backfield or outside the hashes for the receivers. And as a result, they're kind of just teeing off, and they're really isolating a lot of what made Dallas so special last year.
They are. So hopefully, I mean, when do Zeke come back?
Christmas Eve against the Seahawks.
And all right, so the Seahawks. So that's not after the Redskins. So we got Redskins, and then who we play from there? Do you know?
After Redskins, we got Giants right after that, and then we have I can't remember the one right after that, but I'm pretty sure Seahawks are 2 weeks after the Giants.
Oh wow! It seems like an eternity this guy's been suspended. My goodness, man. It's just one of those things where the NFL should at least just get, man, because I don't think the outcry was for him to get these 6 games, to believe it or not. Even the women's rights groups kind of like, man, we just gonna hush our mouth because this lady may be lying, and I didn't hear no major support from the women's rights group, and shout out to all the women's rights group. I'm not, selling, talking about you guys, but it's just one of those things where it just seemed like maybe we hit the refresh button for next year, but if we don't win these next 2 games, then it's just going to be far-fetched, because I was looking at the scorings from this past weekend. Everybody that needed to lose, they won,
Right. Yeah, Dallas is in a very tough situation at this point. The only way they're really going to have any chance is to win out. And even then, they don't own many tiebreakers. And because they don't own those tiebreakers, they could hit 10 wins if they did somehow win 5 straight and still miss the playoffs.
Shame. It's just one of those things, because we needed the Atlanta Falcons to lose. I think we needed the Carolina Panthers. I think we needed them to lose, and it's just so many teams that just winning when, like you said, we need to win out because we don't own no tiebreaker, and we definitely need to beat the Seattle.
Yeah, definitely. Seattle's going to be a big, if they're making a push, Seattle is going to be a big hinge basically on whether or not they can do that, because like I said, they have 2 teams with losing records the next 2 weeks, although they are division rivals. And then after that, I think they have Oakland after the Giants, and then it's Seattle, and then they close out at Philadelphia.
Oh wow.
So really, if you look at that, because it's going to be most likely like it was last year, but flipped, the finale will be the Eagles not needing to play their starters. If Dallas can get to that point, they could have a chance. But all of this is predicated on winning a couple games now without Zeke, so that when he comes back and the offense presumably starts scoring more than 10 points, you can still do something. And I just don't see anything right now from this team indicating that's going to be the case.
Yes. And let me break this down, guys. The reason why, and, I know some people saying, oh man, why Dak can't play without Zeke? It's the fear factor. I told everybody a week before that we don't really have an explosive guy like the Tyreek Hills of the world that can be on the outside.
Yeah.
And Dez Bryant, Lord God bless his poor heart, but he's more of a possessive type of guy. Run, and now if he can catch the 50-50 ball, then maybe that can open up for the offense. But the combination and the route calls that they call is just not going to happen with this coaching staff. But what Zeke brings to the table is that now, if he makes them pay, basically that extra safety that's in the box, if he can't get to his spot, that opens up for Beasley, across the top. And if the safety, if Beasley is working them across the top, they open up that slot for Dez, And then if Dez get that extra roll coverage, now you can do the reverse sweep. Now that happens. Now that open up. And that's what we saw most of the time against the Kansas City. And that's why I don't know who was the player on the Kansas City. That's why he said, you know what? He played the Eagles earlier part of the year. And that what made him say, you know what? The Dallas Cowboys is the best football team in the NFL. Because it's a hard equation. And you move one part out of the equation, sometimes you can't resolve it, So will Morris do the same thing? No, because this is what I was so hot when they cut Darren McFadden. Morris brings you one element. He can run, he hit his own reads, and he can get to the hole in space, and he stutter steps, and he doesn't finish through the route. Or run, I meant to say. The problem is the other side of that coin is that linebacker knows without a shot of a doubt that he's no major threat catching the ball out of the backfield. And he's diminutive in the way of blocking. So those two negatives in his game plan, and there's so many people just don't understand, who don't pretty much look at the tape and film, just don't understand that part of the philosophy. When you have Zeke out there, you got to worry about the flats, you got to worry about the screen pass, you got to worry about so many other factors, those small intangibles. That's the reason why Zeke is so important to that game, and vice versa. That's why Dak is so important to Zeke game.
Yeah, I agree completely. You take out the home run ball from the offense, and you're going to be hard pressed to keep manufacturing long drives without that dynamic talent. So.
Yes, indeed. So I know I had to break that down for you guys. Hopefully I can put that on film and you guys can see what I'm talking about. And that way you guys can point at it and look at it and say, okay, yeah, this is what he's lamenting here. It's just one of those things that it just seemed like a lifelong sentence for us diehard fans waiting for Zeke to come back.
Yeah, it's one of those things where at this point, I don't know how much of a chance Dallas really has to make a playoff push for this season. I think what's probably going to happen, I don't think Jason Garrett's going to get fired. If you look back, there have been calls for Jason Garrett to be fired since 2008, his second year as the offensive coordinator. I think he took over the reins. Was it that year he took over the reins, or was it 2009? I forget. He's been here 7.5 years. Jerry, if you recall, literally hired Jason Garrett as the offensive coordinator before he even hired Wade Phillips as head coach. He has long since had him, pegged as the B and everything like that. He refuses to accept any possibility of being wrong on Jason Garrett, just like he refuses to accept the fact that he built his stadium the wrong direction. And as a result, I don't think we're going to be getting rid of Jason Garrett anytime soon. What I could see happening is getting rid of one or both coordinators, however, and that would still potentially fix some issues. I actually think that Rod Marinelli has more value of the two as far as who to keep. I think Linehan, I think you can find a better offensive coordinator than Scott Linehan at this point. And I really think that that's something that they've got to take a look at. They've got to do something. It's one of those things where, because of what we thought this team was built to do and what they're looking like now, someone's head has to roll for this, basically.
Yeah, and we've seen this play out before, when Callahan was the offensive guru as far as the O-line. We had a hell of a year, 2014, with him behind the Rams and it was just one of those things. Or was it 2013? When did? Yeah,
13. We had 13. We had Callahan. The offense wasn't great, and you had early on with him. You had a kind of struggle between him and Garrett on who was actually calling plays. 14 was Linehan when things turned around.
Okay, good. Glad you corrected me on that. So yeah, so 13. But you remember how that all kind of like transpired or went through. It was like we mutually agreed to walk away, this sort of thing, and then he started letting stuff out like towards the latter part of it. And I think that it's going to be similar. You know, Jason Garrett's going to stay behind the coaching duties there, and it's just going to be either the sword is going to fall on Scott or the sword is going to fall on Rod. Either one of those guys are going to get the axe. You know, that's just how it is. You know, we see it all the time in politics. We see it all the time in jobs, promotions. When you have that nepotism or when you have that type of pedigree out there, as far as him having a shoe-in type of job, I don't know whether or not he have tapes or dirty pictures of Jason. I mean, of Jerry Jones. It's just one of those things where this guy get time in and time in and time in and time in again.
Hey, he went to Stanford. Maybe that's what he learned.
Or I thought he went to Princeton, so he's just one of those guys.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
Ivy League, right? Rump school.
He's Ivy League, and he have the same whatever tapes he have on his owner. I think Marvin Lewis have the same type of tapes on his owner, because he been forever with the Cincinnati Bengals, you know, and not winning anything. Yeah, so same song and dance. Yeah, so that's pretty much, man, how I look at it. You know, it's just really, we can say fire Jason Garrett, but he's not going nowhere.
No, I don't think so. I think it's going to take I think the only way you see Jason Garrett out is if you see the team quit to the degree that they did on Wade Phillips, where the team came out of the gates something like 1-6, lost Romo for the season, and then like 2 weeks later they get blown out on Sunday Night Football 45-7 at Green Bay, and it's just so painfully clear that the team has quit and just wants nothing to do with the game in the middle of the year. I think that's the only kind of scenario. I think you have to have Jerry embarrassed to such a degree that he literally can't blame it on anything else, because that's what's going to happen right now. This season already has built-in excuses. It's, the Zeke suspension and the injuries. It's not Jason's fault. That's how Jerry's going to paint this in his mind. And as a result, it's going to ignore prevalent issues, I think, as far as the coaching staff and the general philosophy.
A billionaire is never wrong, as they say. So that's just how it goes with that. Jerry's a billionaire. So it's just one of those things where, like you said, at the end of the year, either the calling papers be for Scott Linehan or Rob Marinelli, and the beat goes on, you know.
Definitely.
Yes, indeed. So do you want to do a score prediction, or you just want to shy away from there?
Let me put it this way. If I'm putting a score prediction, it's at least Washington plus 3 scores.
Oh wow!
That's my general feeling right now. Is I think we're going to see the same trend play out, where in the first half Dallas plays it fairly close, and second half is a flip of roles. And probably, I think that's going to be the case. I really do. This team to me right now looks like something along the lines of 9-7, 8-8,
9-7 or 8-8. I mean, we can play spoilers down the line, but to me, you know, I'm predicting another 31 to maybe, I think we can get over up to 24 points. 31-24.
Oh, wow. You got us at 24. That's more than the last 3 weeks combined.
Yeah, somehow, some way. I mean, we got to score, you know.
Yeah.
this team can win if they just stay true to their identity, and that's running the ball, pounding ground, and that's the only way we can win. And if we win, it'll be 24 to maybe like 10 game. Whereas we stay to our identity, we run the ball, and Dak minimizes the force feeding of Dez out there on the island. With Josh Norman, and they figure out a way to get turnovers, and they figure out a way to get special teams involved. And the good thing is, not to be gloom and doom, we get a Pro Bowler back, we get the kicker back who can put points up, so that's why we can get at least a little bit more points on the board, right?
Yeah, and as far as helping the defense, Sean Lee's not back this week, but based on initial prognosis, he could be back next week. So if you could steal a win this week, you still give your chance. You still give yourself a chance in the long run because you at least get him back, and we've seen the impact he has for the defense.
And I think before maybe, and I can just go all gully eyes and wishful thinking. Maybe Washington is our omen. Last year we beat Washington. We went on a 11-game win spree.
Yes, 11 is where it ended.
Go Cowboys! So if we can go on an 11-game win spree,
it was either Washington or it was the week before with San Francisco. I get those two. I can't remember which one was week 2, which one was week 3. But regardless, the momentum was really kicking into high gear at that point.
So somehow, some way, maybe they can just say throw Trey Williams out there, and he can have like a game like the Packers kid had on us. And they just threw this guy out there, and he just had one world of a game. We got his name.
Aaron Jones.
Aaron Jones. Like, who is Aaron Jones? I hope. What if they can have something like this? Just me wishful thinking, of course. What if Trey Williams just started out there and he'd be like this Aaron Jones type of guy?
Yeah, man, that'd be great.
Oh man, life would be great at this point. But hey, do you have any other closing remarks or anything like that, Derek?
No, other than to just remind everyone to check out the Dallas Prospect. The website is thedallasprospect.com. Cover sports in the Dallas area as well as pop culture, so you'll get everything from the local teams. You'll get some film review, gaming, things like that as well. On Facebook, and follow us on Twitter at Dallas Prospect.
No doubt, guys. Go out and follow that page as well. And I thank everybody for tuning in. And remember, you listening to nothing but the best. Salute. We out. Peace.
Right.
Yes, indeed.